Hello everybody, welcome to Hasidus from the holy city of Tzfat. And we are happy that you are here. And we've got some other lovely noises around us. Okay. Oh, Karen Orr, welcome for joining. Welcome.
Shalom,
Shalom.
Shabbat Tov,
Shavua Tov.
Chodesh.
Chodesh Tov. Yeah, wow. Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. Wow. Big stuff. Okay, so today we're going to discuss a very important thing. The idea, I saw this yesterday in a Sikha the Rebbe. We kind of spoke about this Shabbos at the meal. So it won't be new to everybody, it will be new to some people. The Rebbe has a very beautiful teaching. He says the main word for redemption, which is geula, comes from the word gilui, which is revelation. So redemption is synonymous with revelation. Now, what does that mean? There's a beautiful story that a person once came to the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Frierdiker Rebbe was in a hotel, one of the great Jewish rabbis and saints, and he said to him, "What is Hasidus?" Hasidus, of course, the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, innovated, tremendous inspiration amongst the Jewish people. And to some extent, Judaism existed 3,000 years before the Baal Shem Tov. So what exactly did the Baal Shem Tov bring? In fact, we know the Baal Shem Tov is the beginning was called Torah Shel Moshiach, the Torah of Moshiach. And it's a whole new dimension. There's going to be so much revelations and stuff like that. But the Torah already existed, right? Truth, in a way, is here. So the question is, what exactly was innovated? So the Baal Shem Tov said, Frierdiker Rebbe did something which was very, very profound and beautiful. He took a candle. Now, in the olden days, they didn't have lights like we have. And what did he do? He put the candle next to the wooden panel of the hotel. It happened to be a fancy hotel. And there were beautiful engravings on the wall. And he said, this is what Hasidus did. Before, just like literally right now, this room, what you're seeing right now, could be dark. And if it was dark, nothing that exists now wouldn't be here. Everything would be the same. The only difference is you wouldn't see it. It would be confusing. It might be scary. So what did the Baal Shem Tov bring? The Baal Shem Tov and Chassidus brought a clarity. They brought light. And light also has the idea of warmth. They brought that to the world. So the idea of Moshiach is not a different world, right? The fundamental structure of reality, which is basically what we call time, space, soul, effectively people, doesn't change, right? We're not going to fundamentally change. We're going to be basically still people that have consciousness, that have various needs in one way or another, that have emotions. However, we're going to have a clarity of revelation of the purpose of life, of the revelation that Hashem is in control, so it's all good. In other words, the same world can exist where you don't see the world, you don't see it for what it is, you don't realize why we're here, or the world is here and it's an amazing world because you realize the amazingness of it, right? So a very simple example, you could have a child, and their father is an amazing father, good man, kind man, sweet man, but the child doesn't appreciate what they have. Because in their eyes, you're born and there's this person and he's being nice to you. You have zero appreciation, or a mother or a friend, who knows? You don't appreciate it. In fact, unfortunately, when do we really see the greatness of many of these people is after a person passes. They're like, wow, that was such a good person. And when they were alive, they weren't such a good person. What happened yesterday? The answer is yesterday you took them for granted. Yesterday you didn't see what was there, but you just didn't have the ability to appreciate and to sense what exactly you were looking at. And the same thing is with the world. The world always had Hashem. It always had miracles. It was always a place of, in a sense, absolute amazingness. It's just you didn't have the eyes to see that amazingness. And a really good example is, and it's happened actually, unfortunately a person could be born blind. Some kind of, medical condition. And then with some kind of, technique or some kind of operation, the person can see. Now imagine a person goes from a world where they cannot see to a world that they can see. Imagine the difference of their life. It would be like, wow, what an amazingly beautiful world. Great line from Helen Keller. So she said, she once asked her friend went for a walk in the forest. So she said, what did you see? So the friend said, well, not much. So Helen Keller said, if I had not become accustomed to the fact that those that see so very little, I would have been surprised. Right? So many people are living in the world. It's the same world. And one person can see magic, God, love, amazing things. And the other person is like, oh my God, the life is crap and it's bad and it's like, what a bad world and everything is. So which one is right? And the answer is that, it is true, there's no question about it, it's true that, there is suffering in the world and there are things that have to change, etc. However, if we're actually talking about ourselves, you ask yourself about your life. How is your life? And if everything is just bad, it means you're not being able to see the good. Because it says in Kabbalah that if you took all of your curses and you compared them to one of your blessings, your one blessing would outweigh all your curses. So there's nobody in this world that won't go through blessings and curses. No one. But there is no one in this world that if you took all of their curses, and I don't want to demean, there are people that have obviously been through a lot of suffering and pain and there's horrific things, etc. So we're not going to label this as a blanket statement to be used against anyone, but we're just saying this more for our own growth and our own sake. That there's no one in this world that will have a bigger cup of curses than blessings. Everybody, their cup of blessings is infinitely greater than their cup of curses. The very fact that you can even say this and that you're alive to say this is the greatest blessing that exists, right? The fact that you can count your curses is the greatest blessing that ever happened. Thank God, people that are really troubled, they don't have time to count their problems. Who's the people that are really like depressed, and angry? Let's say it's the West or, maybe a black person, let's say in America. Well, if that person was living in Africa, which I lived in Africa a long time, he wouldn't have time. There'd be nobody to complain to. He'd be lucky if he makes $100 a month with hard work. And he's lucky if he's not, if he survives the, So it's like the very fact that you could even complain is like, wow, that's a real luxury. That's pretty good, a child comes home and the mother doesn't cook the food right. Like the fact that you got a home and you got a mother and you have food and you're complaining, it just shows that you're just not aware of the blessings that you already have. So I'm not saying this to hurt anyone. I'm just saying this to make ourselves aware that each and every one of us we have more than one blessings. I'm alive, let's say in my own life, thank God I have a wife, I have children, I have parents, I have good friends, we have chassidus, we're living in Tzfat. Each one of these blessings, you can say, okay, take all of your curses and you just have one of them. I would say yes, So it shows that our blessings outweigh our curses, but we have to be aware of those blessings. And one of the most important things that we have to do is every morning when you wake up, you have to count your blessings. It's something that I recently started, which is very, very powerful. I had this idea, which is like, imagine like an orb, and now imagine the blessing, compare it to the curse. So even with interactions with people, you'll often find that the people that you're upset about, you actually got more blessing from them than you got problems from them. Let's take our parents, for example. So I'm not saying that there can't be a circumstance but usually, probably, a person received more light from their parents than they received darkness. And so if you look at your parents and for a moment, look at them, just put it in a bowl and look at all the good they did as light. And now put all the bad they did as dark. Now just compare it. How much light is there and how much dark is there? Now, if there's more dark than light, okay, you're entitled to complain. But if there's more light than dark, you're a lucky person. You received a gift. You didn't deserve to have parents. I mean, they're street kids. They're kids. I remember seeing this in Africa. These little kids, shame, very sad. What are they like? They smoke glue, and they're lost kids, right? They don't have parents, and there they are. They're just begging for money. So you have somebody that cared for you, somebody that cares for you, somebody that takes care of you. These are incredibly great blessings, which we need to be grateful for. And really, every single day before you get to bed, they say before your feet hits the floor, your heart should hit your head. You should think all your blessings that you have. And if you do that, there's no doubt about it. I mean, presumably if there's not something really serious or problematic going on, you will turn around and to be a very happy person. In fact, I studied this from the Baal Shem Tov today, very interesting. He says that a person has to have a relaxed or like a clear head. You know, one of the big problems that we're dealing with in society today, and see it very, very much on the younger generation, is that they're just freaked out. They're on the phone all the time. Like you look at a lot of these kids, like they're just not in the space of reality. This is their space, you know, and it's just not a healthy thing that your space should be this little 6 inches by 2 inches, you know. Your space has to be a much bigger space than that. And so a person has to have a sense of, you know, your technology should not be overwhelming you. You should be overwhelming your technology. You have to have a certain clarity in your head that you could be functional and you can be, you could, you know, certainly we should be staying away from the media. All these things cause depression, anxiety, unless you're listening to my lectures, of course. So the big exception here. But obviously if you're listening, you're choosing to listen to something of good content somewhere. But again, that's like an intellectual choice. It's not like your emotions have just, oh wow, I gotta listen to Rabbi Zevi now. You know, it's like you've made a conscious choice of what you're doing as opposed to some kind of just, and that's what they're so good at. They're good at creating the emotional, the likes. You know, I remember when Facebook came out. So I was in Johannesburg then, and I had a Facebook page, and they're like, someone in I don't know, whatever, you know, some town in Johannesburg thinks you're a dork, right? So they're playing on people's literally fear. I mean, I knew it wasn't true because I didn't know anyone from that town, but they were literally playing on people's insecurities in a very, very bad way, right? I mean, it's telling that all the people that made the technology never allow their kids to use it. If you need to know more than that, there's not much more. You know, I have a friend, he's CEO of a tech company. And yeah, he doesn't let his kids use tech, you know. There are no tech for them. And his kids are much better off because their minds are open, et cetera, et cetera. I heard there are studies that, you know, when, I think it's with the girls, maybe it's boys also, but definitely girls, when they have the iPhone, it creates depression and stuff like that. So we have to be very, very careful with technology. So, what is the essence of Moshiach? The essence of Moshiach is revelation. So what will be revealed? And if we understand this, we can literally be living in the times of Moshiach now. So there are three main revelations that are going to take place in the times of Moshiach. The first revelation is the revelation of you, of who you are. And who are we in essence, right? This was actually the first thing that was said to a Jew, which is, what was the first thing said to a Jew? First thing ever said to a Jew. It's in the Bible. That bestseller. Huh? No. Okay, that's true in a way. That's technically true because we became Jews.
Is this right after the binding of Isaac?
No, before the binding of Isaac.
Well, Abraham would be the first Jew.
Abraham would be the first Jew. Good.
So the instructions were.
What was the first instructions to Abraham? Lech lecha. Good. Lech lecha. And what does lech lecha mean? Go into your own soul. Go into yourself. Because in order to truly grow, you have to truly know who you are. Because as long as you think you are a physical being in a physical world, then you're limited by what the physicality can do for you. And that's where a lot of people mess up. I was speaking to my friend, you know, he's actually well-to-do. He's living in Switzerland. And, he's saying everyone's chasing the money. And, okay, he's a very spiritual guy. So he's like, to me, having a house, he doesn't have one. None of this stuff matters. Because now there's nothing wrong with having a house, very good thing. But, like, if a person is just chasing the physical, so what have you done? You've created a box. They said, this is the greatest possible reality that we're going to be in. And if we succeed in making this box bigger, then I am literally, I'm a success case. But at the end of the day, however you cut it, it's a box. And you're in a box. And so your soul is bigger than that box. So if you limited yourself by that box, you are actually a limited being because you are greater than a box. So that first step of spirituality is knowing lecha, knowing who you really are, which is in a sense your God. And there's no limitation. I mean, there's a direction, which is better world, but there's no limitation that can be placed on a person. And the whole world then becomes a tool for the spiritual. The physical is not there. It's very interesting. I learned this today from the Baal Shem Tov. He says, what is Mitzrayim? Mitzrayim is that the soul was slave to the body. God made everybody with a body and a soul. But if your soul is a slave to your body, the whole person's desire is just a body, then that is Egypt, that is slavery, that's a meitzar for the soul. But if you get out, and that was the idea, the final thing was killing the firstborn, which kind of was the disconnect between the mind and the heart. If you get out of Egypt and you allow your soul to be the one dominating you and shining, so now you got a whole new reality. Now you're free from the box. Now the soul is shining. Now you're on fire. Now you're a good person. And so that's the number one thing that a person has to know, which is that I am not a body, I am a soul. And there are many, many people, particularly the media, that behind all of its messages is one thing, that you're a body, right? That's the whole thing. Whether it's a hair cream, or whether it's the car that they're trying to sell you, whatever it is, or even politics in a way, like the government, it's just a bigger body, like we're the government, we're big. But in terms of who we really are, it's like a child. What is a child? A child doesn't really care that much about its body and its stuff. It doesn't have stuff. So it's like this force of life, this positivity. And then as you look out, and certainly many people, they have lost connection to their own soul. So all they have to promote is their body. Through shame, they're ashamed of themselves. So all they're promoting is what they can look good in. And so therefore you end up with a society where everybody is trying to look good for everybody else. So who's the person that is worth looking good for? Because each person is trying to look good for the other person. So where does this begin and where does it end? It doesn't make any sense. So only when we're, thank God, in a situation where we can get out of that box and say, no, it's not about looking good, it's about what is good. What is the definition of good? Being good, that's what it's about. So once you get to that, then you've really cracked open the box, you've cracked open the shell, and now you're actually able to be your real self. Okay, so the first thing is knowing ourselves, right? So we come into, if you want to call it, into a shell called a body, and we think we're the body, and particularly, even though as a child you're very idealistic, but there are other people that you're going to look around, the world around you, particularly the media, that's going to make it out like this whole thing is about the body. And then you can get stuck. Instead of the body serving the soul is trapped by the body, and then you're stuck. So the first thing that God says to a Jew is, Lech Lecha, I want you to know who you really are. He says you have to leave your identities. It's very funny. Today, there's a lot of things about identity. But, what could be lower than a human being than reducing them to a certain desire? I mean, I'm not chicken, even though I love chicken. I'm not cheesecake, even though I love cheesecake. So to take your certain desire and then reduce your whole identity around a specific desire is just like the lowest thing that you can possibly take the highest thing and make it into the lowest thing. So the opposite is true. The opposite is that I am not my desires. I will choose my desires. I will decide what to desire and what not to desire. I'm not going to let my body determine exactly what I'm going to eat and what I'm going to do. I'm going to determine what my body is going to do. There's a chassid that as soon as he would go to bed, he would fall asleep. So they asked him, how is that possible? How does a person put his head on the bill? He says, if mine fared on my horse, I'm the balabas, I'm the guy in charge, right? So the better we become, the more in control we are. You know, we were talking on Shabbos at the meal, and this lady that was there, she was saying that sometimes she says to her thoughts, like, what are you driving me nuts for, right? Even your thoughts, you should be in charge of your thoughts. So, what? Yeah. Even your thoughts, you need to have a control over your thoughts. So this is a very, very important idea, which is we are not our body, we are not even our thoughts, because we are the ones that should be determining our thoughts. Now, while we're speaking about that, something that's very, very important, I remember my father, who's very bright, thank God, he once told me, Zevi, you have to know yourself. So it took like a couple of years, I think. And I just asked myself, what do I believe? What do I think? Da, 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 da. Then another point in my life, I took the time to become aware of my thoughts, right? So a lot of people, they're thinking, but they're not aware that they're thinking. So you don't have the ability, it's like watching a movie, and a lot of people live in this life, right? We're watching a movie, you were kind of saying this on Shabbos, watching a movie, but you don't realize that you can change the channel. There's another movie that you can play. And just because you're thinking in a certain way doesn't mean you have to think in that way. You could think in any way, right? There are billions of people thinking and they have different thoughts. People are seeing different realities as we speak right now. So do you want to live in a world where your reality is negative, or you want to live in a world where your reality is positive, right? So that's changing the channel of reality. So the first channel we have to change is ourselves, meaning I am literally God in a body, and I have the ability to always be godly, right? Whether that's in my relationship with myself, with you, with others. God is obviously infinitely beyond my mind, and therefore the whole universe, this is the second dimension, the dimension of the Torah. That the Torah also has an infinite dimension. The Torah is not just a set of rules, which also it is, but it's also a set, not a set, but it's an infinite kind of, if you want to call it AI guidance, ethical guidance system. That's what it is, an infinite AI ethical guidance system. So wherever you are at any time, any place, God has a message for you. And God is talking to you. And as I posted today, it's like our job is, God is a good God, meaning He's a good guide. He's always guiding us, but we have to be a good follower. His guidance will only work as good as we follow it. And so if we can get ourselves to that space where you're saying, yes, God, thank you for guiding me. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy, busy, busy schedule to focus on me and to give me the attention of guiding me. I know I'm such a great person that I deserve it, but still, considering your infinite obligations, it's still very kind and nice. And therefore, I'm going to have the courtesy and the wisdom to listen to your advice, right? Imagine a parent. The guy's running, I don't know, the guy's the president of the United States. He's got a big, I think recently Biden said, I'm running the whole world. He's like, I got cognitive functioning, I'm running the whole world. So he's the guy, let's say he really is okay, and he really is running a lot, but his own son, he's like there for him as well, for his math and for his homework, for everything, because he loves him. That's what Hashem is, he's running everything. But at the same time, he's 100% there for each and every one of us. That's pretty big. So if we have any seichel, we don't say, oh, I'll take that for granted. Sure, God's communicating with me. You know, why not? Because such an amazing person after all. No, Yishmegegi. It's such a miracle. The times of Moshiach, that God has been revealed, that He's coming to you. Pay attention, listen, whatever He's going to say, he's helping you in ways that the whole universe together with all the AI, with everything can't help you. They don't know all the details, He does. So pay attention, listen to what He's saying, say thank you. By the way, thank you is very, very important. It says in Chassidus that thank you cuts to the essence of the relationship with Hashem. And so that's why in the morning, even before you wash Nagavaser, you can say Maida Ani. Even though it's a prayer, you didn't wash Nagavaser yet, your hands are tummy. But still, you're allowed to do that because thank you is higher than any kind of tumah. So when Hashem communicates with you, it's very important to say thank you. because the klippa right away tries to get you, right? So Hashem says, I don't know, go to Tzfat. So then immediately what's the klippa going to do? It's like, Tzfat, it's too many bombs in Tzfat, don't go to Tzfat. And you immediately have to say thank you to Hashem. Because if you say thank you, what happens is you actually bypass the klippa. Thank you is stronger than the klippa. In fact, it's very helpful to repeat what Hashem says 3 times. So go to Tzfas, go to Tzfas, go to Tzfas, thank you, thank you, thank you. Why? Because we actually have 3 brains, and you want something to download. In order for it to download, you have to say it 3 times to go through the 3 brains to have it download. It's interesting in the Shemona Esrei we say 3 blessings, first 3 blessings, which are blessings of gratitude, praise. Yeah, thank you. The first 3 is praise, but we say 3 times thank you. You need that 3. We say 3 times as a chazaka. So when you do things in the 3s, you manifest it down into our reality. It's very important. There's a story of a chassid, a big chassid, that he once needed $40,000 to finish off his mikvah. He says, no, in this world, it's a physical world. You got to do something. You can't just pray to God. So he went like this. 10 minutes later, a guy called him, Rabbi, I got a donation of $40,000. So he was obviously a holy man. But there is something to that. Why? The Rebbe would give out every Sunday, he would give out dollars, he'd give out blessings to people. And one of the reasons he gave out a physical dollar bill is because when Hashem spoke to prophets about a prophecy, he said, do something physical. Because we want to manifest from the world of thought into the world of action. So by doing something physical, you bring it down into this world. So if Hashem says something, right away try to do something. And then even speech is not as concrete as an action. And then maybe give a coin to Stuck or something. Doing something concrete will manifest it from heaven down to earth. So far we discussed 2 amazing revelations that we have to live with. Revelation number 1 is the revelation of ourselves, that we are actually God, and therefore we are unlimited. We are in a body. The body is limited, but I am unlimited, and my soul has no limitation. In fact, the previous Rebbe once said, when he was being sent into jail or whatever, said our bodies were put into exile, but the Jewish soul can never be enslaved. Nobody can enslave you unless you trust them. Right? But if you realize that the guy's a moron and he's telling you information based on stupid information that he or she got, and you don't give any credence to what they're saying. Let's say somebody says, you smell, and you think, well, maybe the person's right. Why are you saying I smell? It's not fair. But if you know that the person has no olfactory nerves, they can't even smell. So you're like, oh, how do you know I smell? Right? You can't even smell, right? So it wouldn't bother you. So things only affect you when you take serious the source of what it is. There was a great book. It was written by a guy, by Paul Johnson. I think he passed away. You heard of Paul Johnson? Paul Johnson was probably the greatest historian of our times. Very great man. He was evangelical. And he wrote a good book called History of the Jews. He speaks about how all the great innovations came from the Jewish people, all this kind of stuff. But in any event, he wrote a book, and the book is all these, a lot of them secular commentators on reality, like the philosophers are telling everybody how to think and everything. He said, let's analyze the people that are telling everybody else how to behave. It was their own lives. And it was their lives were atrocious. It's Aristotle talking about morality. Aristotle was a very immoral person, so he doesn't have a right to speak about morality. So the point is that our own neshama is very, 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 very high, and it's higher than the body, and therefore it's here to guide the body. Everything in the world is here to serve as something that the soul uses for a higher reason, not something to get stuck in that thing, and then your soul goes into this, and this becomes your whole reality, whatever, your Lamborghini, etc., etc. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, we said that Hashem, the second revelation of Moshiach, is that Hashem is communicating at all times and all places, and therefore it's an amazing thing. We're living in a world where right now Moshiach is here, because Moshiach is a revelation of Hashem. And Hashem is revealed now. The Baal Shem Tov showed us how Hashem is revealed, and many people are kind of hearing the voice of Hashem. So what does that mean? It means that Mashiach is here, right now. And that's an amazing thing. That's a reality that you can live with. That's a beautiful reality. And last but not least, in the physical world, things are improving. Obviously, there are various improvements that we need on a on a complete level, we need Tchiyas HaMeisim, we need the clouds to come down, we need the Beis HaMikdash, and then everybody will realize that Moshiach is the king, and everybody will have a sense of ultimate respect and realize, I said this before, but there was a comedian by the name of, who's from Mrs. Doubtfire? His name was Mrs. Doubtfire, really funny guy. I forgot. Fortunately committed suicide. I think he was manic depressive. But in any event, he's a funny guy. So oh yeah, Robin Williams. Yes, yeah, Robin Williams. Thank you.
We found out later he had diffuse Lewy body syndrome. He actually had his brain went tangled up. It's called neurofibrillary tangles, and so basically, really he died from a neurodegenerative disease that. But yeah, so it wasn't quite really suicide in my opinion.
Oh wow.
His brain was basically destroyed to the point where he couldn't function.
Oh wow.
But yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Wow.
Okay, that's really sad. In any event, so he has this line where, like, different people get to heaven. Like, anyway, Christians get to heaven. I'm just saying this as a joke. I love all my Christian friends, but it's just a joke. And he's like, sorry, the Jews were right. So when Mashiach comes, that's what's going to happen. It will be clear. God will reveal clearly that the Torah is true, and that we're going to see the resurrection of the tzaddikim and Mashiach, and it will be very clear to everybody that's truth. And in a way, even the crazy Muslims, and what they're doing is they are religious people. They believe in God. They have a very, very bastardized version of what God is and what heaven is, etc., etc. But they are believers. When Mashiach comes and they'll see clearly God's hand in the Beis HaMikdash, they'll all be running to the Beis HaMikdash. It says, Ki vesi vesu tefillah l'chol ha'amim, my house will be a house of prayer for all people. So this will be a very, very, very wonderful time because there will be peace in the world. Yes, and right now, the world is better than it ever was. I know it's crazy, and we're living through, right today we've heard bombs, etc. But at the same time, when we look at the world, there was never 40 years that the superpowers of the world weren't actually doing a world war. You understand? The world never had 40 years without a world war. And so we are, thank God, since World War II, we are 80 years, right? 40, 80, yeah, we're 80 years, 85 years. That means we've already done 100% increase in peace than ever before. Monetarily, we're much better off. Human rights-wise, we're better off. Educationally, we're better off. You think about the miracles of modern medicine, infant mortality, we're better off. So when you actually compare it, if you compare how we're living today to 1800s, we're like 90% better off. And so, of course, it doesn't mean that there aren't problems in the world, but a lot of the problems that we're dealing with are just stupid ideas that are coming from, radicalism, which want to infiltrate, what we would call a Judeo-Christian mindset, to have a better mindset. But a lot of the fundamentals of reality have changed for the good. And so ultimately, what is Mashiach going to do? Mashiach is going to bring us to a state of a perfect world. And the most important part of that state actually can be accessed right now. And that is that the whole world is Hashem. That this world, Eino Imovade, there's only Hashem. Now imagine if you wake up in the morning and you just repeat these three concepts. I am Hashem. The world is the Torah telling me good advice on how to grow. And the whole world is Hashem himself. It was like, whoa, that's a pretty cool place to be. Okay, so we're going to do a little meditation, which you can all use and try to bring this into your lives. And it goes like this. Okay, take a deep breath. Breathe in Hashem. Let go of all the klippa and all the negativity that exists. And breathe in Hashem and breathe out all the klippa, the negative forces and the anger and the negative stuff. And breathe in once more, Hashem. And just say to yourself these three things, and if you say this to yourself every morning, it will be very powerful. I am Hashem. I'm the soul. I'm a soul of God in a body. And this soul is eternal. It's light. It's love. It's goodness. It's compassion. It's nobility. It's a conscience. And that is who I really am. And everything else is slavery. Anything that I feel that I have to, out of shame, do something for somebody else, that's slavery. And my soul is free. My soul is independent, it's free, and it's not a slave to anybody or anything. And the second thing is that this world is the Torah. There's no part of this world, there's no part of my life that is not God communicating to me, and that's what the Torah is. So it's just a way of Hashem hinting to me, giving me messages on how to live a more ethical, a better life, and sometimes on things that I should do and I shouldn't do, which is how to live a more ethical life as well. And last but not least, this world is Hashem himself, because Einoid Mavadi, there can be nothing in existence but Hashem. And this is one of the most important prayers, particularly the Baal Shem Tov says the most important prayer in Galus and Chutz La'aretz, outside of Israel, because in Israel you feel God everywhere. But outside of Israel, the secular society, the buildings, this and that, you could really feel how it's something else. But you have to realize, no, this too is Hashem. Okay, Hashem might be hidden in this reality, but still it is Him. He is there. He is behind it all. And once we understand He's behind it all, it can only be good. It can only be leading to Moshiach. It can only lead us to what's going to happen very, very soon. Hopefully today, the resurrection of the dead, the Beis HaMikdash coming down, the clouds bringing us Eretz Yisrael, all the Jews settled in Israel, and the whole world seeing once and for all that this is the truth. When the whole world sees it's the truth, because there are different truths in the world, they will bow to the truth. They will be happy to serve the Jewish people, part of their mission to help us. They'll be happy to come to the Beis HaMikdash where they will experience God. And so the whole world will be one world under God. And everybody will realize that our essence is God. Hashem is the Torah, is the reality. He's communicating, and Moshiach is here. It's so far beyond our imagination, but everything is really Hashem. And we'll come out of the meditation with a 3, a 2, and a 1. Any questions? Okay. Okay, excellent, excellent. You're welcome, you're welcome.